Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us on Connecting the Dots. We are here with a very wonderful Dr. Roshni Agarwal. She's a consultant cardiothoracic surgeon with EIG Hospitals, and she has over 9 years of experience in her field and was trained at Apollo Hospitals. So today, to talk about how food impacts your heart health, Dr. Roshni is going to help us bust all those myths and tell us how we can keep ourselves healthy and not head towards harm. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Roshni.
Hi, Prerna. Good to see you. So, really excited to talk to everyone about good heart health. So, I think let's get started. Yeah.
So before we get started, White Dot is all about clean food and making cleaner choices. And what we mean by clean food is perhaps something that people don't understand yet. So I want to get your take on it. What, according to you, is clean food?
Yes. So, see, clean food means different things to different people. But I think, according to me, it should be natural food, which is neither processed nor refined nor chemically altered. Basically, the food which is in its purest form, in which it has grown. So that is what I think is a good definition of clean food.
Okay. And how is it different from healthy food?
Correct. So most of the people tend to confuse clean food with healthy food. See, clean food is something in which we prevent the entrance of harmful foreign objects into our body, whereas healthy eating means a wholesome eating experience where you are calorically and nutritionally adequate. So there's a lot of difference. See, clean food is not something which you can gulp it down. You can't eat it over your calorific requirement. Whereas healthy is a balanced diet where you are taking care of your protein and energy needs. That is what is the basic difference between clean and healthy food.
Okay. And so this is something that I'm sure a lot of people get confused with. What is the good cholesterol and the bad cholesterol?
Correct. So we as human beings in our body, we are bestowed with essentially three types of cholesterol. So I think we've all heard about good and bad cholesterol, but the scientific terminology for it is there are two types essentially which make a lot of impact in our body. The first one is low density lipoprotein, which we call as bad cholesterol in layman's terms. So it is basically associated with the plaque formation and all the fatty buildup in our arteries. So that is the bad cholesterol. The good cholesterol is called HDL, the high density lipoprotein. What it does, it absorbs the excess cholesterol and takes it to the liver for metabolism. So these two cholesterol makes a lot of difference in how we are going to live our life. So higher levels of LDL, which is bad cholesterol, is bad for our body, and HDL is good. And I don't know if you know this, but women are bestowed with higher quantities of HDL. That is why the life expectancy in women and the risk of heart diseases is
more.
less. It is a natural thing. Yeah. So as women, I think we have higher HDL cholesterol. So these are the basic two types of cholesterols. Other than that, there's something called triglycerides, which give us energy. But anything in excess is again not good. So there's a balance of HDL, LDL, and triglycerides in our blood, and all these are essential for our survival also, because lot of tissues and cells in our body are made of these, especially the brain tissue and all that. So suppose if these are not there adequately, then also our brain is going to degenerate and all that. So essentially, these are three. The good cholesterol is HDL, the bad cholesterol is LDL.
All right, so HDL and LDL, that's what we need to remember when we're looking at our blood
Correct.
test.
Correct. Yes.
Right. And how is processed food, how does processed food impact that?
Correct.
The levels of
So,
HDL and LDL.
correct. So see, there is the processed food. There are usually four types of processed food. Not all kinds of processed foods have a bad effect on our health. So if the broad category is minimally processed, processed culinary ingredients, and processed and ultra processed. So the most riskier thing is the ultra processed food. The lowest processed is usually not very harmful. So there are different types of mechanisms where the food is processed. But what happens in the ultra processed category is the food, the material is extracted, it is chemically modified. That is what causes the most amount of damage in our body. And how is it modified? Most of the times it is because of the excess addition of salt and sugar in those processed foods.
Right.
So, and not only that, they usually add high amount of trans saturated fats, especially if you see the chips which all these kids eat nowadays.
Right.
And not only that, if you see the cookies, there is going to be artificial sweeteners and emulsifiers and phosphate salts in those. So all these are again linked to ill health. And there's a famous quote in our medicine, basically: ill health is not due to invasion, it is due to imbalance. So what these ultra processed foods do is they cause imbalance of all these. The natural food does not have its nutritional value anymore when it is ultra processed. That is where the harm begins, basically. So
that's
this
actually
is what
very well put. That's clarifies it very nicely.
Correct.
And how is it that how would sugar impact your heart health?
Correct. So let me talk about the sweet dangers of sugar. So I think many of the countries have deemed sugar as legal drugs now. They are equivalent, and they cause enough harm in your body as much as a drug can do, a substance abuse drug can do. So how? So first and foremost thing, all of us know the basic thing is it can give you diabetes if you're eating too much of sugar, by causing too much sugar retention in your body. The other common thing is, see, if you're having enough sugar and already, then your body is doing fine. But if you're having excess sugar in your body, some time ago I spoke about triglycerides. So what happens is the excess sugar again goes and forms into triglycerides, and again it causes deposition in your arteries. And then it causes cholesterol imbalance also. It lowers your good cholesterol, that is HDL, and increases your LDL. And not only that, we all thought sugar only gives you diabetes. No, it also gives you hypertension. The mechanism is complicated and only the medical people might understand. But yeah, high sugar is even linked to higher BP, not only diabetes. And apart from that, it is a very inflammatory substance. It causes a lot of inflammation in your body, and any kind of inflammation can lead to multitude of diseases. That is how sugar impacts your health. Not only heart health, but your entire body health, basically.
Yeah. And how is high BP correlated with heart attack or heart health, basically? How is it correlated?
So what happens is your arteries, essentially the arteries in your body, they are elastic. You must have seen your artery pulsates, it's very elastic. But when you have higher blood pressures, what happens is the texture of the artery is lost. So from being elastic, because of the constant, high pressure, it becomes very stiff like a pipe. Okay. So what happens is our body is used to that elasticity, the blood especially. Because the elasticity is gone, your blood stays at one place and it causes clot formation. That is how hypertension gives you, clots in brain and clots in hearts. So strokes and, heart attacks happen because of hypertension.
Because of that. Okay, that's how the link works.
Correct.
And there's
everything is linked here. Your sugar levels, your sodium levels, everything.
All interlinked.
Correct. Yes.
And there's been quite a recent surge in the number of heart attacks that people are having at younger ages. I mean, I myself know of 4 instances where, and especially men in their mid 30s or early 40s, have suddenly collapsed and passed away.
Correct.
With no previous illness or anything of that sort.
Yes. So the younger generation, the recent American Heart Association data has said that the 30 to 40 age group has become especially vulnerable for heart attacks in this era, last 20 years especially. So they have done extensive research on this aspect. Nobody was initially clear why it is happening, but they've attributed some things to these the heart attack in younger individuals. So most important is unhealthy eating habits again. The junk, processed, unclean food is the
but America is to blame for that as well.
Correct. So that is the most important factor which they have attributed. The junk food, the food associated with high trans fats is the biggest culprit in all these things. And I think the lifestyle, the stress, which is very much higher in the younger population, the ability to, the ambition, the
to do more and to constantly be on the go.
Correct. So it has increased the stress levels tremendously. Other than that, see, indirectly again, eating habits have caused obesity. The obesity levels have risen up like significantly in this generation. If you see, even in the kids, childhood obesity has become so common nowadays. And then other common causes: smoking, cigarettes, vaping. Vaping has become like a show off for this generation. So that and substance abuse combined, all these factors. There's no individual factor as such. But all these factors combined have, there's an association of increased heart diseases in the
So
younger
if you're in the
individuals also.
30s to 40s, you're at a higher risk right now.
Very high risk. I myself, we have been, regularly operating on patients who are like 18 years old, 20 years old. So it's quite a scary thing. Yes.
And how does blockage happen in the heart? Like you're very, I would say, expressive in terms of how you explain it. So give us an idea of how does the blockage happen?
Correct. So see, the heart is a muscle. It's constantly pumping blood to your body. It never rests.
Right.
If it rests, you rest in peace. So heart also needs some blood for it to pump. Okay. So heart gets blood from its own arteries. It's called coronary arteries. So what happens is whatever the excess cholesterol in our body, the excess triglyceride. So as I said, the arteries are elastic structures. Okay. And the
Right.
blood constantly flows through them. So all these cholesterol and the fats, they all get deposited in your arteries and they cause narrowing there. That is how the blood supply doesn't go. And that is what is a blockage. It's simple. The term blockage itself is self-explanatory. It is only explaining you how it happens. So that is when the blood supply to the heart comes down and you get a heart attack. That is how it is.
Very easily explained.
Yes.
And can you give us a few symptoms of how we can differentiate? Like we all know how a heart attack, what the symptoms are that you need to look out for. The arm, like a sharp pain in the arm. But how do you differentiate that between gastric issue or a heart attack? And I'm sure a lot of people sometimes get confused on this.
So even we as doctors, sometimes it's difficult for us also to say because they mimic all the time. Most of the times they are similar. Even sometimes I have a gastric pain, I want to take an ECG myself. So it's very difficult as such. But the chest pain usually it's very classical. It's usually on the left side only. It is very tight pressing chest pain. And it radiates. It goes either to your jaw or left hand or back. So that is the classical description of your left-sided chest pain, also called as angina. Okay. Apart from that, usually chest pain is associated with some other subtle signs such as you have sweating, you have a fear of something happening to you, like a fear of impending doom that usually comes to some patients. And then if you have breathlessness along with it, these happen only in cardiac symptoms, not in the gastro. The gastro, the pain is more diffuse and it can be right side, left side, and it can even be in your stomach. Although you cannot differentiate, but these subtle signs sometimes give you a clue that okay, this might be cardiac. And especially age, suppose you're elderly, you should always think of it as cardiac also, rather than just thinking it of an acidity or anything basically.
Okay.
So
you can't rule
these
it
are
out right away.
No. So, but yeah, some signs, sometimes, as I said, all these are very common in patients who are having a chest pain. They have these associated symptoms.
And can you give us like an example or a case study of how change in diet has helped a patient of yours from undergoing surgery or from a very difficult situation?
Correct. So, see, I mean, when a patient has been referred to us for surgery, already it's too late.
Yes.
But I can give an example of how, it made our life easier. So, there was this gentleman, he was just 32 years old, but his weight was about 140 kg. Okay, and he needed a heart surgery. He had a heart attack, obviously because of his, 140 kg. He was a software engineer by profession. But that amount of weight was very difficult for us to, because bypass surgery is a major surgery and it needs a lot of cooperation and extensive rehabilitation from the patient side also.
Right.
So initially we thought, we cannot operate on the patient. And then he took it on himself because he was so young. He had a 9-month-old child at that time. So then we said we'll give you, because he was asymptomatic. Usually heart surgeries don't wait for long because they are emergent, semi-emergent kind of surgeries. So but he took upon himself. He took 1 month. He met a nutritionist. He completely changed his diet. He started exercising. He took a sabbatical. Then he came down from 130 to 110. Even that 30 kg reduction made hell lot of difference for us. And then we took him. And he improved. He got discharged like any other patient, and now he's come down to 85 kg in the last follow-up, and he's doing absolutely fine. Yes. So it's important that we understand how to lose that weight by changing our lifestyle, and it's possible. It's not like you would think of it as a miracle story, but it happens. It's only up to you how to do it, basically, and
You know,
get
because
the
they
right
now do call
habits.
a heart attack sort of like a lifestyle disease or a bad
Correct.
heart health, because it's all
Absolutely.
about your lifestyle at the end of the day, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So, to make this a little bit more fun, I'm going to do a little quiz with you. Are you ready?
All right.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a few questions. Of course, we Googled it. We're the Google generation.
All right. Yeah. I hope
So,
I know the answer.
I'm sure you do. Just all you need to say is, yeah, give us your answer on
All
that. What
right.
risks, what risk factors for heart attacks and strokes can be reduced by healthy food habits? High blood cholesterol, high blood sugar, excess body weight, all of the above.
All of the above. I gave all the description, I think, extensive
Yes.
in the last 15
Um,
minutes. Yeah.
People without coronary heart disease, diabetes, or high LDL cholesterol should aim for a diet with no more than 10% of total calories from trans fat. Even I don't know.
No, I don't think so, because not only trans fats, all kinds of fats, your saturated fats, your unsaturated, everything combined should be less than 10%, not just trans fats. I think yes, so it's false. Fat should be the least amount in your diet. So give highest preference to your protein, basically.
But aren't fats also, there are good fats that are helpful,
So
like
less than
ghee?
10%.
Okay, fair
Ghee
enough.
is, again, it's good. It's saturated fat, but in low quantities. You can have good amount of unsaturated fatty acids, which come from fish oil,
Right.
or your flaxseed, chia seeds. All these are very good. So all these combined, also 10% is enough for our body, actually.
Liver is a great source of iron and should be incorporated into a healthy diet.
Liver has the highest amount of fat. So three things will be saying no. And so liver,
False.
beef, and brain, all these, have the highest quantity of fat.
Are you saying that just because you're a vegetarian?
I'm happily saying it because I'm a vegetarian, so I don't
All right.
have to eat them. Yeah.
Okay. Symptoms of high cholesterol include frequent headaches and fatigues, weight gain, shortness of breath, none of the above, all of the above.
No, high cholesterol has no symptoms. There's no symptom at all. Only thing you will know is by doing a blood test. There's no symptom for high cholesterol.
Wouldn't you be gaining weight?
No. My mom was 45 kg. She still had high cholesterol. So there's no correlation between weight and cholesterol, basically.
If you're sedentary at your job, you skip meals in order to reduce calories and lose weight.
No, if you skip one meal, you're going to binge eat the next meal.
That's true.
That is not advisable. And then, it's not how it is. You should have a balance of nutrition in your day, no matter what. So that is not ideal.
Seafood is notorious for high dietary cholesterol, therefore, I should avoid eating tuna salad. What?
I don't think so. Tuna is very healthy.
Healthy.
Even though there's
Yeah.
some amount of cholesterol, I think it should be okay as long as the portion size is good. It's not too high.
One small egg has more cholesterol than 6 ounces of chicken breast.
Yes, I think so. Even though we think, egg is the healthiest, but the egg yolk has high amount of protein, basically. So
Okay.
that is where, but your chicken muscle, so it has only
Right.
protein. So that is how egg might be having more cholesterol.
Okay. If I'm younger than 50, if I exercise and eat right, heart disease will not be a problem for me.
Unfortunately, no. Majority of the heart diseases were a mystery until now. Even now, scientists are trying to decode. We don't know what causes heart disease. Even though we're not against being healthy, but you never know. Just being healthy doesn't mean you're not going to get a heart problem.
That's true.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
Even though heart disease runs in my family, I can still lower my risk.
Yes, absolutely. So again, lifestyle modification always helps reduce the risk. Even if you have high family history where most of your relatives have been sick, still you can manage it.
And
Definitely.
8 ounces of fat-free milk has more dietary cholesterol than 1 ounce of cheddar cheese.
I'm not sure exactly, but I don't think so. Cheese is always,
High in
I think,
fat.
has more, high fat. Yeah.
Which automatically would
I think
make it.
so. Yeah. Cheese has more fat, I think, any day. I think.
So, before we sign off, can you tell us 4 or 5 foods that would help to reduce your cholesterol?
Yeah, okay. So, as I said, good cholesterol, bad cholesterol.
Right.
So, it's always good to increase your good cholesterol. So, most of your, in the vegetarian, since I'm a vegetarian, I know more about it. So, a lot of your soy products, and your flaxseed, chia seeds, and canola oil, all these vegetarian sources. In the non-vegetarian sources, all your fish oils, basically your salmon, trout, all these have very good quantities of oils which increase your HDL cholesterol. So I think these are very good sources of healthy heart, I can say, ingredients which keep you healthy for long. Yes.
And is there, so that's one way to reduce your bad
Correct.
cholesterol is by eating the good cholesterol
Correct.
foods.
Correct. Correct.
All
Yeah.
right. I
And
think
avoiding your trans fats is the biggest thing, and the sugar. Sugar is the biggest culprit nowadays, actually.
I can't believe it's taken us so long to figure out sugar is the biggest culprit.
Culprit, yeah, it took generations actually.
Yes, exactly.
Very long
Well,
time.
it was lovely talking to
Yeah.
you. Thank you, Dr. Roshni Agarwal. For anyone who's missed our conversation, we will be uploading the video onto our YouTube page, White Dot Basket on YouTube, and also on Instagram. You can also follow Dr. Roshni. If you need to consult with her for any heart-related conditions, she's available at AIG Hospital. Thank you so much. Stay tuned. We will be having more talks and conversations coming up. Thank you for connecting the dots. Thank you.